because we have a lot to do. Part 2 of episode 5, In the Eye of, a Solar Exalted Story. Act 1, What the Night Driver Fears. The Windthrift, unsurprising to the crew, but perhaps not to the passengers, was able to outrun the Imperial Dreadnought that was being pushed by elementals and pulled presumably by other elementals, hopefully not demons. But nonetheless, the laws of the dragons had not been fully abated, and the massive weight and draft of the dreadnought didn't allow it to catch a light, quick vessel armed with its own breathy elemental and a savvy crew and large sails. And so while there was some maneuvering and the second ship in the distance seemed to be caught in some magical effects, the Windthrift quickly pulled away from the pursuing dreadnought. And although the dreadnought seemed intent on keeping them in sight as long as possible and trying to push them this way and that, nonetheless, even that failed, and the dreadnought became a small shadow in the distance, and then as night fell, a distant tiny light on the ocean, and then which was then swallowed by the seas and the dark sky. And the Windthrift ran on. The crew dutifully went about their shift change, and fewer, although fresh faces, came on deck as deep night fell and went about their business among the moorings. But the passengers seemed less inclined immediately toward sleep, and so they continued about their own business on deck or elsewhere as the ship continued to run. Not too much longer, maybe an hour, just on the other side of the balance point of the night, so just past midnight. A call went up from the crow's nest, which the crew, or with which the guests of the ship, as they were starting to attune their ears to the sounds of the rough dialect of the ocean's argot spoken with gusto by the crew of the ship, several of them who were within hearing range, managed to pick up a call from the crow's nest, which was, "The dragon, she is opening her eye." A quick look around assured the chosen that unless that mortal crewmate up in the riggings could see in the dark, there was no dragon, and it definitely wasn't opening its eye. Sometime later, it became apparent within the next hour that meant that the outer edges of an ocean-born storm had been sighted, and the captain and Rack worked with their various sighting and sensing devices to adjust the tack of the Windthrift so that when the edges of the storm began to encompass the ship, the effects would be least deleterious. still cautious, still roused somewhat, um, the chosen gathered back together on the deck and used their various senses and sensations to feel that this was, in fact, not some new sorcery being hurled at them across the seas. Although Lost did say that there was a certain something about the storm. When pressed to elaborate, she shrugged and said, "There's just a certain something about the storm." The waves began small at first, crossing the medium-sized waves that they were carving through and creating strange and lovely interference patterns of dark water and white froth in the ocean that seemed to ripple like spirals out from the ship, as though the Windthrift itself were creating the patterns and not the ocean tumbling over itself. The wind that was pushing the waves arrived a little while later, and the clouds that they were carrying came swiftly in. There had been a very high overcast since before sunset, keeping the stars from shining down on them, although surely not blinding the maidens to the affairs of creation. And these clouds were much darker yet and lower, and they caught the boiling of their lower edges caught the lights swinging on the Windthrift, so that there seemed to be a soft and boiling curtain somewhere above them. Or, as anyone who has ever been deep under the ocean, as a great wave rolled over and they watched the life of the belly of the wave be like a cloud, that's what these clouds looked like, shifting and thick and heavy with rain and boiling in and among themselves as the air of the storm encountered the air of Dreadnaught's open ocean. Some of the day crew were roused to do things that some of you have always wanted to hear happen on a ship, and that certainly Bergamot would have been excited to hear, like the battening of hatches and the securing of lines and several things being done that you don't know the names for, to other things that you don't understand the objective name of. And so the ship, she came alive for a few moments with change, for a few minutes with change and clattering and clacking. And it seemed pointless to interrupt the crew with any questions or offers of assistance, because they have clearly done this 1,000 times and needed no assist. As the storm begins to grip the Windthrift, the Windthrift begins to shake and shudder occasionally as the waves coming across its sides and occasionally frothing little white tendrils over the railings strike at unpredicted intervals. Are any of the chosen going to get up to anything exciting? That's you guys.
I know. I'm more like, depends on how much time has passed, because last I remember, Jude was asleep. It's probably been long enough for him to wake up.
You napped for a while, but certainly the changes in the ship and the sounds and the shifting in the air would have woke you, unless you really would like to remain asleep.
No, I am happy to join the action again. It was more just that, it had been a while, and the character tries to maintain his own health as well.
Yeah.
So there's not a ton he can do here, but he probably is going around and actually he's probably going to go check on Wellspring, because Wellspring had issues with seasickness earlier. So that's probably the first thing he's going to do.
So I think you've done that, and the chosen are resilient, and so
Okay.
Wellspring has recovered, certainly with at least the offer of some incredibly foul smelling assistances for seasickness from the crew.
Likely he tried one and found himself seemingly permanently cured. Having
All
clearly
ills.
nothing to do with wanting to forever avoid it again. So very
not at all.
good medicine.
Mm.
Well, as I stated previously, I think Wellspring is oft sort of just making himself present and around for a voice of need to reach him easily. If things are very calm, he might retreat to his quarters to
The ship
on
does not
something.
look like at any point this evening it will be heading toward calm.
That is true. Then I think as last we saw him, he's in the proximity of the captain, serving as a sounding board for whatever plans Vermilion wants to be making.
Smashing. Vermilion, it's a storm. It looks unhappy. It does not seem to be a hurricane. So, it's probably going to be a long, exhausting, wet night.
You mentioned earlier that when pressed, Lost just said that there was something about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think Vermilion would have been might have pressed further and maybe got nothing, but I think he was like, is it something familiar or something dangerous, or and how do I feel anything strange about the storm? I've probably seen many storms at
Oh
sea.
yeah.
And so I'm wondering
Dozens, hundreds.
I'm wondering if this is singular in some way to me.
There are no preternatural qualities as yet in evidence to you.
Okay. Well, I mean,
and you definitely can have pressed Lost, and she kind of looked sideways at you and sort of placed her hand gingerly on a nearby mast and sort of looked at the ship and looked at you and shrugged, and then went forward as she had done before, and in a very unadvisable fashion, leapt easily up onto the prow of the ship and leaned forward with her face just beyond the edge of the ship, like sometimes is seen where there is a maiden, or the image of a maiden attached to the prow of a ship. She leans forward with her face taking the wind, and seems, if you didn't know better, you would assume she was tied to the ship, because even when it rocks from the side, she moves as the ship moves, and not in the way that even you stagger.
mm-hmm.
And she's just kind of up there like that, like she's like a dog smelling the wind.
Since Wellspring has been shadowing me a bit, I assume he's nearby, and I
Sure.
kind of glance over at him And I'm looking at Wellspring to see his reaction, whether this seems, typical or.
He is just looking at her fondly and seems to catch your gaze and says, "Oh, yes. Um, this is very much in her nature. She is predictably unpredictable in many ways. It makes her a wonderful traveling companion. But she is not always the best at articulating what is going on inside her mind. If she has taken an interest, though, it likely means we should be considering this situation more than we otherwise might."
Hmm.
What do you normally do in the case of a storm?
It pretty much has all already happened.
Yeah. In response to that, Vermilion places a hand on the mast that she had placed her hand on earlier, and he nods in response as if like positively absorbing what you said, but his wings kind of do a shake behind him as if betraying some sort of anxiety, as if shaking off something, and then he shrugs and says, "Most of what preparation we need to do has been done. I think it's just a matter of holding the course." And I'm also curious, like, is the storm gonna put us, is it in between us and our destination? And
It's
is,
coming from the north
okay,
and the east a little bit. And you're running south by southwest,
mhm,
or no, you're running west by southwest. There we go. And so it is, if the winds are very strong, it might push you further south. And so you might have to come around a couple of the larger islands east of Rondon instead of moving through kind of the middle of the island cluster that's east of it.
I see. I relay that information to Wellspring,
Okay.
and I shrug, like this, as if to say there's not much more that can be done.
Make a perception plus sail for me, if you would.
Oh, sorry. Three successes.
You notice that you notice a few things. One, as the storm, as the edges of the storm have engulfed the area that the Winthrop is running through, the air has become just about as humid as air can get. So even though it's not hot, it is warm, and there's a dripping fullness to the air. And in fact, the sails, as they are racing through the air, are gathering water, and water is beginning to drip off the support beams that hold the sails. It probably means you're going to get some torrential rains. Also, the air is cooling, which sort of backs up your idea that the storm is coming from the direction of Mela, where everything grows cooler. But you're noticing that the ship should be sort of bobbing forward and back as it goes through the waves, the predominant waves that it's running through. But the ship has actually begun to sort of bob almost in a circle. So there's a strong side to side component that you hadn't noticed until you were talking to Wellspring about preparations for the storm. And that's odd, because the wind the elemental is blowing about a 20 knot wind into your sails, and the crosswind is about 8 to 10 knots. So it's strong, but not bad. But that means that it probably means that the current of the ocean, that the ocean water being pushed by the storm, is very strong, which happens. But
I think I talked to Rack about that, but make a note of that.
the two of you talk about it, and he's a little like, he seems a little baffled because he apparently didn't notice that. He also was a little tired. And so he literally runs to the port side of the ship and drops a trolling weight on a rope and watches it move a couple times and turns back to you with that kind of, that means, of course you were right, but I had to check anyway. And he does the same thing at the back of the ship and at the other side, which would be common.
You are concerned, Captain, that there is something beyond the pale about this particular storm, as might be the case by lost interest. I know a lesser charm of sorts that might serve to tell us a little bit more. It's just a minor trick, you must understand. No great working of sorcery, but when you get heavily invested in the occult, some things can be revealing, even if you can't put power behind them.
I'd welcome any additional information, and as long as there isn't a risk associated with it.
The only risk is that it does nothing at all, and we are exactly where we started.
Well, that's a risk I think we can tolerate.
I might grab Jude to second check my work, whether or not he has seen this particular technique. And Wellspring will wander off to try to find Jude, and then ask if he might join him in his quarters briefly.
Jude will be happy to help. He's not bronze anymore. It's been long enough. And has probably been kind of like bouncing around and like taking people water when they need it and stuff like that, but kind of doing that fluttery thing that people do when they want to be helpful and have no idea what to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also what Wandering Starfall is doing, except she's doing it to like the whole ship, looking for something that she can help with and not finding much.
As Wellspring walks away, Vermilion, Rack turns to you and looks really uncomfortable, and then you see him have one of his little sort of debates with himself, and then he looks up at you and sort of nods deferentially and says, not that it's my place, Captain, but the doctor knows better than to turn into something made of bronze when we're in difficult weather.
I would assume that the doctor has put that together, yes. If only through your very subtle hinting.
And so Wellspring and Jude, what are you two cooking up?
Down in his quarters, Wellspring will say, I was hoping you might be able to check my work on this. It's been a little while since I pulled out this particular trick, and a second set of eyes is always helpful.
Happy to take a look. Good to have something I can do. Let me take.
All right.
What have you got?
Well, as you see here, and Wellspring will pull out like a small cut down piece of paper and start sort of quickly scrolling on it a very simplified depiction of the map of creation, like very high level simplified, but just generally capturing its shape with the borders spelled out in a very small line of words rather than being solid lines. You'll say, now, as I understand it, by creating this depiction of our world, we map the pattern that the poles of the elements have into this symbology here, yes? Then by allowing the space between the letters of the calligraphy, it gives the ability for the power of the spirits to sort of reach in and out. Yes?
This is interesting. I've not actually come across this before, but he's starting to like kind of examine and take a look at it. And out of character, I have no clue what you're doing, but in character, I'm sure he's kind of getting the gist.
Well,
It's obvious to you that he's winding up some like calligraphy based sympathetic occult working.
Ah, okay. Thank you for that explanation.
and he must be like fathoms deep in his knowledge of calligraphy and written language, and because there's crazy levels of skill and understanding happening on this paper, on this quote unquote little sketch.
Very.
yes, a sort of sympathetic magic, as you will. Now, if we take, let's see, I must have something around here, and he'll fish around until he can find something that will allow him to affix strings to the top, bottom, left, and right of the paper. He'll punch a little hole and thread them through and kind of hold them like that, connecting the calligraphy from the poles of the map up to the strings, and allowing his stroke onto those points of contact to linger for a moment so that the ink absorbs slightly into the thread and causes sort of a connection between the two.
I see. So you're channeling it. That makes sense.
Yes, and the hope is, well, why don't we go upstairs and see if I've done this right? Because I never know. It doesn't always work. But usually it's, and I think there's similar things in medicine. Yes, we had a conversation about this once.
Yeah.
You're almost certain to know when it does work. And if it doesn't work, you have no idea.
Oh, very much.
So the Wellspring will usher the two upstairs and kind of make very apparent that he's carrying something in case it might catch the eye of the other two chosen who want to see, and then make his way over to the captain and say, all right, well, essentially what we have here is a detector for the influence of elementals of a certain nature. If they've been riled up beyond their normal function, you might find that we will see in the paper some indication. Typically, for example, if there is activity from elementals of the wind, the northern part of the paper where this thread here, and he will gesture, is connected, will generally tear in a way that leaves the rest of the paper fairly intact. If, however, there is strong influence from elementals of the water, we might find that stray rain will fall almost exclusively on this left part of the page here until the page becomes too wet and the thread tears out. That's the extent, really.
Vermilion looks at it, obviously impressed, but also a little bit like you're speaking a foreign language. But he is very curious and wanting to see what happens.
Well,
So normally
let's see what
workings-
happens and find out.
So normally occult workings take a good amount of prep, but we had talked about some prep and some other things. So I'm just going to assume that over the last few hours when you were in your cabin, this is what you were doing.
Sure.
so-
Let's say he pulled out an almost finished one and put the finishing touches on it in front of Jude.
Yeah. And I think probably the thread is a very specific red silk, much like is used on the Tapestry of Fate,
Sounds good to me.
supposedly.
I mean, maybe.
Maybe. So Jude, because of your prodigious intellect and skill with the occult, you can offer three additional successes to Wellspring's efforts, provided he gets successes.
Sounds good. Sorcerer's Workings actually do have that sort of thing built in, so works out well.
Huzzah.
And
so-
what am I rolling?
So Joodle, Oh.
This is a pure int plus occult roll.
And would you say that my description would make valid my specialty of occult as relates to spirits specifically?
Absolutely. And because it was such a lovely blending of calligraphy as map, I'm going to give you an extra die for glorious storytelling. That doesn't only happen in combat.
All right, let me punch this in.
so Jude, while you're kind of setting it up, looks at you, talks. So when you're channeling, my suggestion is that you try and specifically focus on. All right, so calligraphy, not my specialty, but if you focus the energies in kind of this direction, and he moves his hands in kind of a curve, and you follow the rhythms of the dragons in this kind of order, and will kind of give his own little thoughts to add along.
Lovely.
Oh, that makes sense. Oh, there's 4 of us here conveniently. Would each of you be willing to take one of the threads?
I can take fire.
Without just kind of instinctively, Vermilion takes the water.
I guess wood makes the most sense for Jude.
And Wellspring will hold the thread at the top and roll the following.
So actually, you'll be holding 2 because there would be an earth thread in the middle.
Yes.
Yes.
You rolled 16d0, my dear.
That would be a problem.
I was wondering how that ended up as 0.
That's much better.
11
Good Lord.
successes. Oh boy.
Plus 3.
Yeah.
Right,
No.
14.
That was including the 3 dice. Was it a plus 3 successes?
It's a
or-
plus 3 successes.
Yeah.
Oh, then what it should be.
Yeah, because Jude is such a master of the occult.
Then let me re-roll it as 13.
Okay. I mean, you don't have to.
Okay.
Well,
You have enough.
It's fine.
Yeah, no. When you said plus 3, I was like, oh dear,
Yeah.
this is going to be large.
No, as it should be. If somebody's not rolling more than 15 dice in their specialty, something has gone wrong.
You're not playing Exalted.
Who's last to take their thread?
wellspring due to waiting to see what the others took.
Okay. So as you grasp the thread of earth and pull it upwards to kind of tauten out the paper, there is a sort of violet thrum of light across the red silk threads, and you all feel a sort of like a twisting in the red thread, as though the silk remembered being a worm and was turning in your fingers. And then a moment later, the entire west, what would be the west, with the entire water section of the map darkens in color almost immediately, and the entire map itself kind of leaps out of a few spare fingers that are clutching edges to protect it against the wind, and the map kind of floats upward and turns a little bit as though to face Wellspring. And in the sort of dark saturation of the great Western Ocean, which is outlined by the words for the Great Western Ocean, the blotches gather strength and the map begins to drip, and for a small moment there is a dark face in the map, and then the water eats through the map like the paper has gone rotten cheesecloth, and the paper doesn't so much rip as kind of tears and comes apart as the water spreads northward and dries out, and a section of the map freezes into ice, and the whole sort of northwestern section of the map, there's an audible crack, and the two pieces of the map separate. And then somewhere in the south, Starfall, you're holding the thread of the south.
Yes,
right?
I am.
There's a moment where the thread stops twisting between your fingers, and it becomes really hot, and a section of the southern map bursts into flames. Does anybody do anything? You have the hands of a smith, so it's not that hot.
Yeah. She is probably the first one to react. I assume she has a plan for all times, for if there is an outburst of fire, since that's a work hazard. And it might be her buff jacket. It's heavy enough leather. She probably spins off her jacket and sets it down on top of the embers to deprive them of oxygen so they can't burn.
So the map is actually floating in midair between all of you now.
Would it be possible to knock it to the ground?
And it's kind of cracked into two pieces, and then the part you're holding, yeah, you can certainly knock it out of people's hands and smother it with the buff jacket, not a problem.
Yeah, that's what she would do. Fire is a quick reaction thing.
Yeah. All right. And so moments later, the map vanishes under a wad of heavy leather, and then before you can stop her, Wandering Starfall is stomping and stomping on it. And surprisingly, there are a few sparks that of burning paper that kind of issue out from under the jacket.
Well, that is a significantly more spectacular reaction than I've ever seen.
I was going to say, I assume that's a yes.
Yes, almost certainly. Normally just one of the edges tears and I go, oh, it was the northern edge. The wind spirits must be a little bit, stirred up.
Extremely yes.
Vermilion, I think when the map, the edge that he was holding, like it turned into like cheesecloth in his hands and melted away, there's a look of horror and it hasn't gone away.
Get it.
Might we request one of those hourly breaks here to
course.
put out our trash and take out our dog who is asked to be taken to the restroom?
I was gonna ask for one soon anyway. So
What a polite dog. I
So
was
we were
going to,
talking, sorry, we were talking about the presence of the realm in the Wavecrest Archipelago and the Coral Archipelago and elsewhere in the Western Islands. And the answer is most of them are officially allied with the realm and almost totally unofficially uninterested, or almost totally officially uninterested in the realm in any way. So there are certainly people in the islands who would and could get messages and, do stuff. But there are no legions in the Western Islands, and there's no fleet stationed there.
I have an idea I'd like to share with the others, but I think I want to finish playing out this scene first because this is pretty shocking.
Yeah. The wind plays with the captain's spread wing feathers and tussles your hair and rubs cool, overly clammy hands along any exposed flesh as Wandering Starfall stands over her buff jacket and with one last kick assures herself that the map is dead.
She'll pick up her buff jacket and beat off the ash and start putting it back on to protect against the rain. But what was that just me, or did everybody see a face?
A what?
No,
Not
there was a
just you.
face.
I did not
Anybody
see
recognize it?
It was wide and thickly set. It looked like it was drawn in ink for a moment before the map pulled apart. It was a wide face and thickly set with deep set eyes and a pronounced brow ridge.
Anybody recognize them?
It doesn't look like anyone that any of you have known.
no.
Just at a guess, Vermilion, both you and you, Wellspring, would say that the characters of that face are the characters of a native of the Western Islands.
Okay. I saw, pointing at Vermilion, your part of the map dissolve, pointing at Wellspring. Yours freeze and mine catch on fire. Jude, did yours start sprouting or something while my attention was drawn elsewhere?
No. Though wood would be unusual to be involved in a storm. So perhaps that is not a surprise. The surprise is the rest.
The surprise is the fire in my book.
The fire, yes, but amount of everything as well. That was
A strong reaction, you might say, like dropping
extremely.
sodium in water.
He turns to Wellspring. We need to talk about that spirit sight thing more. I think we'll need it. I'll need it.
Looking very much like a student who has wandered into the wrong classroom, Vermilion looks at Wellspring and says, I'm sorry. I know you described what you were going to do and I was here for it, but what does this tell us?
Well, again, it is not the typical reaction that I get from what is usually a fairly mundane occult trick. It tells us that there is vast spiritual activity, at least in relation to, it would seem, the air, the water, the fire, the storm, assuming that this is in relation to the storm, if I had to guess, is suffused with powerful spirits, perhaps agitated spirits.
As if in response to that very comment, out somewhere north in the thick black darkness of the storm's night, because it's obvious that this storm owns the night, there is a brilliant violet flash as a world tree of lightning branches from the clouds slowly down through the air and crashes against the surface of the distant sea. The lightning seems to hang unnaturally in the black air, not just in that way that that branches of lightning impress themselves in your eyes and linger in your visual memory, but in fact, as though the lightning were running too slow, and it took it seconds longer than it should have to breach between sky and ocean, and then it lingered there, connecting the two for a moment with an intense violet light.
Hey, Captain.
He turns very slowly towards you.
What happens if your ship gets struck by lightning?
The same thing that happens to anything. No, sorry.
Go directly to hell, do not pass go. Slap Halle Berry and hurry back.
I actually, because it's the ships are made of wood, I don't think it's actually like there's of course a risk of fire, but I don't think that like the entire ship is in jeopardy if something like that happens. I should probably look that up, but
There are
But you
various metal cleats and metal fastenings and metal rings and other things that adorn the masts and the sails. And it certainly, if you were to get struck by lightning tonight, it would not be the first time in history that the Winthrop has been struck by lightning. And typically it can start a small fire. If there's a risk of lightning, you usually get people out of the crow's nest because it's basically a barrel secured with iron fastenings. So that would be bad. But otherwise,
Lightning rod.
yeah, otherwise, typically when lightning hits the Windthrift, it'll start a small fire because it'll hit a metal cleat, or it'll hit a ring. And if it rips through one of the sails, the sail might rip free. But that's about it, really.
yeah, I think my understanding is that like, because the masts are the tallest part of the ship, if it gets struck, it's almost always at the mast, and there's a chance that the mast could splinter.
Sure.
And break, but yeah. So that's what I say to Wandering Starfall. It would certainly be an incident that would require repairs, but we'll definitely be getting the lookouts out of the crow's nest, so it wouldn't be devastating, theoretically.
Well, if there's a risk of more fire, I might. We had these things back in Ontang. I don't know how to translate this, but balls full of foam that could snuff out a small fire. I
Oh,
think I saw enough things to make them. I might arm myself with a few. I'm a fairly good shot.
Well, that could be very helpful. I'm also beginning, and he's like staring at the at the remains of the destroyed map. I'm under other circumstances, I would just head straight for our destination, but so much strangeness has been in our way and around us that I'm beginning to consider the wisdom of setting dock in a port and um, doing some information gathering so that perhaps we might have some better understanding of what is lying ahead of us.
Is there one close enough? We don't have to go through a storm with slow lightning.
Well, there's certainly one on our path to Rondon. As far as whether or not it's out of the way of the storm, I think that has something to do with chance. We're obviously not going to, we're going to try to avoid the storm as much as we can, but outrunning weather is not something that we have full control over.
No, even with sorcery, a storm of this size would be beyond my abilities to do more than mitigate. A thought. The island from before.
I'm sorry,
Captain.
which island?
What was the name of that one? The one that had been, you said half the island was gone and
Oh, it
that
was
had
something
the storm
paradise.
that was not there were signs of things that were not natural.
Well, yeah, the sign was that like everybody was just gone, but it was something paradise, right? Right.
Yes,
Cool.
but out of character, I think Jude also figured out that there were something had grabbed things that was not natural.
It did look like it. You do recall, Captain, that it did look like something had broken the shelter on the island. There was a big, I don't know if you remember, but there's a large solid stone shelter on the island, and it had been broken open. But of course, you know,
From above.
Hurricanes can toss ships through the air, so can move small mountains in their grasp. So
That
it could have been a very violent storm.
that island before. The storm was there were signs of a storm that was perhaps not natural. And he looks out at the storm and kind of nods in its direction and then looks at you.
Yes, I definitely remember, and what struck me wasn't so much the might of the storm as it was the lack of any living reminder of what had happened. And he follows your look towards the storm. I should, this is something I want to get your collectively your feedback on, but I should probably let you all know that there is obviously a risk, which is that the Dreadnought, even though we have lost it, or at least visually, I think we've moved away from it far enough that it is unable to see us with unaided. But given that there were almost certainly children of the dragon aboard it, I think that they could probably pass a description of us ahead. So any island that we dock at will likely be a satrapy of the realm, and perhaps there are agents there that could receive such information. But on the other side, we are far enough away from the Blessed Isle that Well, let's just say that that information would probably be received by most parties with a great deal of apathy, so.
Was
uh,
that
Mhm.
was that not a concern already?
Yes, although, which is probably why I was going to not stop until we reached Rondon, but after what we just witnessed and what we've escaped, I'm. And he looks a little embarrassed, but he says, I'm not afraid. I'm not ashamed to say that I am a little afraid of what lies ahead.
I'll admit
If-
I hate the idea of being recognized, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we can go our whole time here without ever docking in a port, no?
Paul, Rondon is also a satrapy of the realm, right? I would
Yes.
assume.
Mhm.
We would have the same. We would have the same risk.
Although
Even
there's something in the back of your brain, and you're not thinking super clearly at the moment, but there's something in the back of your brain that tells you that it's particularly unlikely that Rondon would cooperate with the realm.
it's just an inkling. That's not associated with any information I have.
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
Your brain's a little mildly offline due to
Well,
terror
Sure.
and being afraid for your ship.
I will comfort myself with the idea of being able to stock up on some things I didn't realize would be so lacking at sea. Speaking of which, if we've got time in a port, I have some ideas for your ship, Captain, but perhaps that should wait.
Well, I'm always interested in whatever advice or innovations you have to offer. If we are docking, however, there's perhaps something you can help me with that's more immediate. And as if to follow that, there's a involuntary twitch of his wings behind him. I've not done a very good job of keeping these concealed, but I would rather not stay on ship the entire time. I don't know if you can help me with that in any way.
Uh, I don't know. I don't often fit clothing, but I do armor once in a while. You mean make you some armor that makes it look like you've just got a very muscly back rather than a pair of fully functioning wings? Try.
I mean anything that might not cause children to either gape or scream.
I mean, my first thought would be cloak, but I can try something better.
He nods, hopefully.
With that, Wandering Starfall will seemingly drop out of the conversation by sitting down cross-legged and pulling out a charcoal pencil and starting to draw designs on her leg.
Wellspring, in that way, you feel Lost's presence around you as a sort of lavendering of the air, although it has no scent. There's something cool and safe that just sort of fills your general vicinity. And then her hand lightly touches your shoulder.
Turn and face her. Yes.
She looks at the faces of the chosen quickly and looks at you and raises an eyebrow, which you know means no one is going to like what I'm about to say. Do you want to talk about it here?
I think Wellspring thinks about that for a moment, this being the first instance of her having approached this way. And then, judging the rest of the group, says, Lost doesn't think any of you will like whatever it is that she wants to share. Would you rather I consult her in private and parse out the actionable information, or be directly involved?
Vermilion doesn't say anything in response, but looks at you with a "what do you think" expression on his face, not moving
Well,
from his spot.
Wellspring just nods at that. That is what I expected. Though, perhaps, Captain, a reviewing of which crew members are currently in earshot might be worthwhile.
I just want to point out, there's not a chance in hell we would have done that occult ritual in view of any other sailors on this ship.
Oh,
Fair.
so were you in your cabin then?
I mean,
Uh,
if I'm honest, Wellspring didn't think it was going to be that spectacular. He thought it was just going to be the paper would tear in a place
that's fair.
that
Yeah.
would
Right.
indicate something. So I do think he brought it to you, expecting it to be honestly unremarkable.
Then, yeah, actually, you're right. Well, there wasn't any, we haven't heard any screams from the crew yet, but I don't know.
Perhaps
Are
you
there
might
any crew
retire
members?
briefly to your cabin to discuss this point.
They saw you put out the sun.
That's true. We did do that.
I mean, a piece of paper caught fire. Who cares?
This is nowhere near as impressive as Jude just being like. I mean, it is to us, but they don't know what it means.
Well, I believe Lost has picked up on something faster than me, and we might retire to your quarters to discuss this.
That seems wise. Thank you for pointing that out.
I think we head there, and then Wellspring just says, go ahead.
So do you want to have this conversation actually in private, or are you fine with other people hearing that aren't there?
I think we want it in private from the rest of the crew,
Oh.
but we want the whole circle there.
Oh, I see. Oh, good. Okay, great. Interestingly, Lost's previously sort of wood brown eyes are now sort of green, and there are flecks of gold and violet sort of glittering in their depths. The voice of the storm is deep-throated, which is no surprise. But there are many voices in the storm, and the voices of the lightning are not the voices of elementals. I believe they are the voices of the Fae.
Vermilion turns completely white.
And my friend, and she and Wellspring, and she says, I heard your voice on the wind. No, not your voice. I heard your name on the wind. Something in the storm knows who you are and that you are here.
Well, Spring just looks off, contemplative. I see.
The Fae know your name?
Lost looks a little bit embarrassed and looks out the window. It's just begun to rain huge quarter talent sized fat drops on the deck.
Well, some might, though my last major encounter with them was far to the north, not anywhere out here. But the reach of the wilds it does not tend to respect the directional relationships of places in our world. So I suppose it's possible. I am told by my mentor that it is not uncommon, if not the expected, that when solars like us become so, exalt, it is rather dramatic and spectacular. Does this sound familiar to you all?
Starfall nods.
Millions lips pursed together
With a-
quietly.
There is dramatic
Dramatic.
recognition in your companions' faces.
Dramatic is a word, yes.
With
There's
a
another
note
one
of
as well
sourness.
that I think rhymes.
Well, I was traveling with my caravan through the lands of the north, and we encountered, well, a number of hardships, but among them, I'm sorry, I'm normally a better storyteller than this, or at least I like to think, but this is a difficult thing to think on. We were meant to be meeting up with the Endless Caravan, as we often do when traveling through the borders of the north that are more exposed to the encroachments of the wild. It's significantly safer when with them. However, we were forced to deviate from our normal expected path due to it having collapsed, which in retrospect, I believe to be an orchestration of some kind. Driven closer to the tainted areas, many members of my caravan were afflicted with a fever of the mind, agitation, which grew to the point of violence. And it was when the caravan was about to descend upon itself in, honestly, cannibalistic violence that I found myself endowed with the power to do something about it. And I was seemingly able to shake from the minds of my friends and companions this effect that had befallen them. Having talked it over with my mentor, it would seem that this affliction was an effort on the part of the Fae to perhaps have those who remained from the confrontation manage to join up with the caravan and infect it from within. And having foiled that scheme, they saw no reason not to have some fun and destroy us instead, since our utility to them was gone. We were set upon by riders and other forces of the wild, and reality itself seemed to start to chew itself apart until I told it to stop. And through that and a number of other miraculous feats, many of which I have not been able to replicate, or at least have not found myself understanding how to replicate, we were able to drive them off. So it is possible that those who fled might have somehow known my name and bear a dislike for me for that reason. Or it could be due to what happened next.
Next.
Okay. Sorry. Yes. Next was where in a large, bright, dramatic vision, I believe manifested from my own power, a man whom I understand to have been the unconquered sun himself made the declaration that I was to reclaim from the wilds all of creation that had been lost to it.
That's a goal.
Yes.
There's a.
So
And-
if any of the Fae had been watching at that point, then yes, they might know my name, is what I'm trying to get at.
Also, the unconquered sun talked to you?
Yes.
Did he talk to any of you? He like looks around at the others because I don't remember him talking to me.
I mean, he's a zenith, right? Aren't they super special? Wiggly fingers.
We're not super special. But yes, it has something to do with that, as I understand it.
Oh, I've encountered other exalt types, but you all are, well, I've heard of others like us, but the first time I met others like us.
I'd be surprised if it were otherwise. I've just read a lot of old stories.
There is
Yes.
there is a blindingness of violet light, and a moment later, a convulsion runs through the deck of the Windthrift, and there's the beginnings of an explosion from the rear of the vessel, but only the beginnings. And then as you all stagger and grab furniture or beams above your head, the avulsion that ran through the deck runs back the way it had come. And those of you with keen eyes turn your gaze through the captain's windows toward the back of the ship, and you see the explosion fall back in upon itself, and the vast violet arm of lightning that is cloven into the deck shudders and then backs up into the sky, and the entire ship lurches backward in the ocean and then continues forward again. And the lightning never hit the ship.
What? Jude goes running to the deck.
Is everyone
Okay.
okay? Oh, yes, that's probably a good idea.
You that's up among kind of the first set of rope ties at the beam
you
at the
cut out
bottom of
for
the
like
main
30
sail.
seconds or not 30 seconds, like 15
Oh.
seconds.
Okay. Can everyone hear me now?
Yes,
Mhm.
I just, the last thing I heard was wellspring, and then suddenly you starting in the middle of a sentence.
Okay. So Jude runs out into the fat drops of the rain, and not too far away on the lower post that holds the base of the main sail, standing among the ropes. One of the crew members is kind of holding his arm out and staring at it, and he's making a sort of gasping wounded animal sound, sort of like but there doesn't seem to be anything wrong with him.
Jude runs over to take a look, see if there's anything he can do.
A couple other mates have run over, but you're the first person to sort of skid to a halt in the deck, and time seems to slow down around you, the way it's done before. And you can see out of the corner of your eye as you look up that he's losing his balance and that he's falling off of the stanchion that he's standing on toward the deck. He's only about 6 feet above your head.
Can I
What do
catch
you do?
him?
You could try, absolutely. That would be a Dex plus Athletics.
Yay. I'll use an excellency too, because I would prefer he not fall to the ground.
Do you have an Athletics Excellency? Oh yeah, it's your cast, right?
Favored.
Favored. Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Lovely. So you can up to double your pool. So you've got 4 emotes, right?
Yep.
So spend your essence and roll your dice.
So 4 motes. It's 1 mote per 1 dice, right?
Yes,
Good. That's what I'm checking.
I believe.
Not the number I wanted to hit. Oh, yay.
Okay. um, reacting faster than you have time to process being shocked. The doctor leaves the door slamming open, and the wind and the fat nails of the rain rush in where the doctor rushed out. So and you see the doctor skid and look up, and you hear someone crying out, not in pain exactly, but in a more disturbing way. Okay. And you see Jude look up and slide to the side with impossible swiftness. And as the man falls, the doctor sort of spreads his hands and catches the man, turning with the rain scattering from his feet as he executes a pirouette on the deck and stands the man up against the small deck house that stands nearby.
Yeah, sorry. I'm like, should be describing this myself. Brain is
it's
just, you know.
Yeah, no. You make a quick sort of diagnostic of him. He's his pupils are like the size of black pins. And he kind of vaguely looks at you. He looks really shocked, and then he just looks back at his hand, and the sort of horrible noise that he was making has just become like a little oh, and he's kind of flexing his fingers and looking sort of terrified.
Jude's
and you felt as he came down, his pulse is racing like a crowd of running horses.
Jude slowly sinks to the ground with him, like, so that he's kind of half lying on the ground, half supported by Jude.
Sure.
Like being held up by his shoulders, so that he's got, and is kind of taking a, like, looks at the arm, but you mentioned there's nothing noticeably wrong, and time is weird right now. And kind of starts to regulate his breathing, like as kind of just a suggestion to see if he can do the deep breathing in and out, and kind of hoping that it'll help calm him down somehow. And says, whatever happened, I will do my best to help. But and first, is there any pain I can help with? Like the arm, I'm guessing?
He just looks at his arm like, are you kidding me?
Like, it still looks normal to me, right?
It does. It's a little white now, probably because he's holding it so tightly. He's, constricting everything in his arm. So you with your being and with your connection and touching him softly and calmingly on the centers of the body, as you are trained to do, you begin to check him out, and you don't need to roll. You are good enough at this, and he is freaked out beyond words, but not actually harmed. And you're able to quickly kind of get his ragged breathing under control, and at least slow his heart rate down to, I just climbed some stairs, rather than I just ran hard for a half an hour and I'm about to die.
Yeah.
And you and the only queer thing that you find is that about halfway up his arm, the two bones of his arm are hot
Oh
to the
dear.
touch. Not like burning hot, but hot. And then you are surrounded in a cloud of your circle, I imagine.
Yes, I assume.
Yeah, I think Vermilion was the second one following Jude.
Starfall, do you stay inside or do you do something else?
I think she moves more slowly than the rest of the group, and we're coming up from below decks. So when there isn't an immediate problem to solve, Starfall hangs back and stands in the doorway. Not necessarily being comfortable with what just happened, but present at least.
Jesse, go ahead.
May I take a look? He says as he sort of glances around in all directions, and then, as he's been seen to do before, sort of pointedly closes his eyes and then opens them again with a slight flash dancing across the irises. As I spend 3 motes on that charm, what lets me see spirits and stuff. Spirit detecting glance, and we'll also call out my uncanny perception technique for noticing both the influences of spirits and the wild, or the fair folk.
Lovely. There's nothing unexpected materializing in your vision close to you. Although there's, as you glance around at the edges of your vision, like somewhere up in the riggings or something, there's a little bit of a weird light, like like having a little bit of a goober in your eye. You know how it kind of turns the light into pieces of rainbow color? It's like that somewhere up at the top of the ship. But the man looks normal.
His arm doesn't look strange or warped in any way.
No, you're not so much looking at directly at the essence. You're more looking at spirits and maybe the peripheral effects of the presence of spirits. Yeah, and you don't see anything in him. You do see the rippling, spread out distortion of the elemental that's driving the ship. And it seems its presence is much as you had seen it before, although it has moved closer to midships, whereas before it was, I don't know, more toward the back of the vessel.
Starfall will also lean out of the doorway and go, if anybody could avoid being outdoors, I think lightning strikes are very likely right now based on the sky. She's pointing specifically to the masks, but does not have better words for this.
So you follow her indication, Starfall, stepping back from the man and from Jude, and you do in fact see, you blink a few times, kind of separating what your eyes are seeing from what your spirit is filtering into your vision, and you do see that there is a sort of flickering multi-hued light dancing on the tops of all of the masts, and maybe along the edges of the tops of some of the sails. And you recognize it as a phenomenon that happens sometimes on ships, although normally in the north. They're called Mela's memories, and for the players, it's St. Elmo's fire.
I wondered.
And it's like The Mella's memories in this instance are like a stain left by a powerful spirit.
So 2 questions. Did time
Sure.
just go backwards? And is the lightning alive? I find myself asking the strangest things these days.
Do any of you respond to Wandering Starfall's question?
I'll look into that in a moment. Patience come first.
Lost
It
is
almost
standing
seems so.
nearby, outside, and interestingly, the rain is not touching her. Falling all around her and the deck, but she's completely dry. And she looks at you, Wandering Starfall, and she nods. And then shrugs.
Okay. I don't know what to do with that. I just make things.
She spreads her hands. Meanwhile, Wellspring, what's up with you? Sorry, did I cut out again?
No,
Oh.
he is having to think this one through. You said the strange visual effect is near the top of the ship.
Yes.
Are you familiar with St. Elmo's Fire?
Yes. He turns to the captain and says, I wish I had more to offer here. I am used to dealing with maybe a spirit that I converse with until I understand what it wants and reach an accord that gets it to stop whatever problematic behavior it's exhibiting. But if we have the effects of the wild in play, unfortunately, most of the things that I was able to do that day that fended them off are not things I have been able to exhibit since.
However strange these phenomena are to you, they are more strange to me. Except for this. This is. Is he okay? And Vermilion, as if kind of wading through a forest of questions, just looks directly at the crew member.
So he's a modestly experienced crewman. He's what's called a sales mate, which is like a couple bumps up from a ropes mate. And his name is Clear Sky.
Clear Sky, I trust these members with my life. You're in good hands. How are you?
I didn't I just die?
Vermilion just looks at Jude.
The light, did I imagine the lightning? It took my arm, and didn't I just die? As if in answer to the question, silently, violet lightning crawls out of the sky, like the long, slow tentacles of an octopus, and it pauses just above the surging sea and then plunges its dark fingers into the sea, and you see the ocean froth and burn around it and then freeze into glass and the glass begins expanding away from the impact point, and there seems to be another light down below the ship, deep beneath the sea, that the fingers are plunging for to reach and grab. And the impossible forces being exerted by the lightning and the ocean turning into glass are causing the glass to begin to shatter, first into dozens of large chunks, and then as the glass spreads into hundreds and thousands and then millions of tiny breaking, shattering pieces of, and then the night around the ship is dark and quiet. And the fat drops of the rain land all around you, because that never happened.
Well, whether you did or not, you're still with us. And tonight is going to be a very strange night.
Are we all standing where we were standing a moment ago?
Yeah.
Including the crewmate?
Yeah.
Jude looks up. Is there someone who can go to my cabin and get my so in my chest there are a few different concoctions. One should be labeled oh wait, they're in river speak. Wellspring. One is labeled, would Willowbark tea be the most, all right, something for knocking them out. Okay, what would be the good
You have several soporifics.
all right.
Probably among them, chief among them would be milk of the poppy.
Okay. There is something in my chest. There would be there's a box that contains various bottles in it, about a foot long by 6 inches wide. And one of them is labeled milk of the poppy. If you could bring it here, Wellspring, since I know you can read river speak, it would be greatly appreciated.
I could go get it if you could write it down, and
that works as well.
Hand you
Or
her
you can
pencil.
bring the box.
Right. Wellspring, like with a rapid motion, grabs, writes, hands back.
And
There we go.
Wandering Starfall will take off below decks.
Meanwhile, Wellspring has been like rubbing his temples in thought, and his
Sorry,
eyes...
Wellspring, did you just run below decks and come back real quick?
No.
That's Wandering Starfall is running below decks.
Oh, great. Okay, great.
For two reasons, one of which is I figure Wellspring needs to think some more about this.
Having been thinking about it, his eyes seem to snap open and wander around trying to catch a thought that has appeared, and then he seems to latch onto it and says, "Captain, do you have any experience negotiating with the Fae?"
He doesn't even look surprised. He just stares at you.
Jude just kind of also looks at you. Actually, Jude has that look on his face that goes, "What is my life these days?" You know, the one that people get. How is this my life?
Ah, yes. Well, I expected your face might look like that, but you might need to learn quickly. Again, I've
Uh-oh.
Oh dear. That was amazing timing.
Might be time for another break.
And so the lightning took them both, sadly.
Oh God. Oh no.
And you wait for the reset. It must be coming. Surely it's coming.
Oh, the laughing hurts my head, but that was hilarious.
gone. This computer screen in my way. I don't need this, and closed it.
Yes, he got very in character for a minute there.
I bow to you, sir. All right, so you're probably gonna have to learn fast.
Yes.
I cannot hear you. It has also apparently thrown off
Oh,
our
You can't?
headset setup.
I can hear them, so it's just you that got disconnected.
Yes, I think maybe now I will be able to hear them.
How about
Oh.
now?
Yes.
How about now?
Lovely.
Sorry about all that.
All right. Your line was, you may have to learn fast.
You may have to learn fast. I know how to talk with spirits, and I can do my best to try to coach you through it, but I think it's going to have to be you. As I understand it, you are an eclipse. Yes?
Yeah,
I
you
am.
saw his mark before.
My
And you knew what it meant.
Yes. Okay. You are an eclipse. If you ask to negotiate with them, I think they have to allow it.
Uh,
This is how it was explained to me. The supernatural forces of our world respect this arrangement for some reason.
I understand what you're saying, even though nobody taught me this. I know what you're saying is true, and yet
And yet I am asking you to negotiate with a storm.
A
I'm
couple crewmen have clambered in the background quickly. A couple crewmen have clambered back up onto the mainmast and are checking to make sure the ropes and everything are fine. And they did look a little haunted.
you're asking me to negotiate with it to all right. How do I
And-
do that?
Let's figure it out. He glances around the ship briefly and says, I do suggest we hurry. Though the ship looks normally unscathed by what happened to it, my, I don't know, second sight, if you would call it, it looks different in some way, like something is absent that was here before. Not like a rope or a barrel missing, but maybe it looks drier than it used to be. Maybe something was leached from it. Oh, wait. Oh. Well, I hate to tell you this, Captain. Well, I think there was a little bit of demon in your ship before. And now it's gone. So that's a plus side. Anyway, yes, I recommend that you negotiate with the storm.
Sorry.
He exhales loudly. I understand the words that you are saying, but also you're not answering any of the questions that I really want answered.
Lingering from before, you mean? Or something else?
Possibly lingering from before. I couldn't say.
That was a
I think I-
demon and this is the Fae. Are we saying that they are the same or?
More like one purged the effect of the other. I need to go write something down. And he runs off down into toward his room. And as an afterthought,
All right,
yells
then.
back,
Says
it's to
Lost.
help. I'll be back.
This feels like an appropriate moment for wandering,
Um,
trotting back up the stairs and
is
go.
there,
You do, and you deliver the correct medicine, and it is administered to Clear Sky. And you, Jude, you send him to his wherever he stays below decks.
Wandering
so I was-
Starfall
help
actually
him.
has
Over
uh,
there.
Wandering Starfall actually has 2 deliveries for Jude. She hands over the medicine and waits for it to be administered, and then goes, I have this thing. I found it in a ruin back in my hometown, and well, I always thought it might be of use, but never really had the skill to use it. Maybe it'll be better off in your hands. And hands over what looks like a jade box with a Twilight cast symbol emblazoned on it.
He looks at a moment, takes it, opens it up, and looks inside, and his eyes get huge. And he starts pulling like little instrument out and examining them, and pulls out these spider silk bandages. And then he looks at it again and goes, he looks up at you. Can I? And then he looks kind of confused and says, this is mine. Huh.
Yeah, seems like a good fit. Guess it knew where I was going.
I guess so. Thank you. This will be extremely helpful. Things that I could do with this. And then he shakes himself and goes to help Clear Sky down to his spot.
Actually, so I mean, you can shake this off of Vermilion as you move to go after Clear Sky. He puts a hand on your shoulder to stop you,
Mm-hmm.
and looks is twice around.
Sure.
Um,
Kind of cowering by the door to your room.
I kind of beckon twice over.
He runs over, kind of tugging at his hair.
Listen, can you please take Clear Sky to his quarters and below
Captain.
decks? And just I want you to stay with him and report back if anything worsens or out of the ordinary happens to him.
Of course,
He should
Captain.
fall asleep soon.
Yes. And I kind of nod at twice and then look over at Clear Sky to see if he's also he understands.
Yeah, I mean, he seems relatively in the room, although his pupils are way too small.
He might be a little bit off balance, so you might have to help him.
Of course, sir.
Um,
And he licks his lips and looks up as though to say anything to get farther away from whatever is happening here.
Sure.
And grabs his crewman around the waist and begins steering him toward door ships.
All right. Well, since Spring has gone to do other things, I don't suppose either of you have any advice as to how to initiate parlay with the Fae.
I don't suppose you'd consider not, says Lost.
Believe me,
Yeah.
that was the first thing that came to my mind.
That's my thought as well. Many strange things I run into. The Fae aren't one of them. I never went far enough east, I think. Too much in the cities and the villages.
There's a hardening on Vermilion's face as the kind of cumulative weirdness of the situation seems to be producing irritation in him, and which is very much at odds with the kind of curious and almost effervescent personality that he's shown up till now. And like you listening to Jude and kind of waiting for a moment, he just nods and marches towards the prow of the ship. And he faces towards the storm, and his wings spread out in both directions so that they are achieving maximum wingspan.
As he does that, and turns, and as Vermilion Eventide turns his face to the sky, and the nascent violet lightning stirs in the clouds and reflects from the gold light of his zenith cast mark. It was later at that moment that they would mark that the evening began to be very, very strange. And let's take a quick break and come right back.
I love the
Oh,
implication that it
no.
just started to get strange.
Looking for the page. Oh, I'm looking for the page number that describes the Eclipse cast ability to do.
Anima effects, I think.
I found it. It's 176.
Yay.
Whatever it was. Oh, are we all ready to go?
I'm ready.
I
Yes.
think so.
Lovely. Oh yes, lovely. So Wellspring, you are emerging onto the deck from one of the below deck ladders. Do you have anything interesting in your hands or on your person?
Yes, he's holding another folded piece of I don't know what
Parchment?
sort of a parchment, and is hurriedly trying to make his way over to the others. I think when he appears on deck, he looks to where they were and like does a double take and then goes, oh shoot, and kind of runs.
Just a final thought.
Hmm.
No chance of outsailing a storm, right? This is different.
Are you?
That's Starfall to the captain. Yes.
Okay. We'll assume you asked sometime in the previous few minutes.
I'm so sorry. Like I blanked for a second. What did you say that one more time? Starfall?
I don't suppose you can outsail the storm. It's different.
I'm gonna guess that that's probably not possible.
Well, it might be, but you could end up going like 60 miles due south.
Yeah. Also, this storm doesn't seem like a natural storm. Vermilion looks and meets Starfall's eyes and says, if this were a natural storm, I might attempt to do so. But given everything we've just witnessed and discussed, I don't think running away is going to buy us much time.
I trust your judgment.
He nods. And he then opens up the parchment that Wellspring has provided to him, and there's a few moments as he kind of reads through it. And past where he seems out of his depth, it seems like he's reading something familiar. And he kind of nods and puts it away.
That is, of course, just a framework you could work from. Please make sure to make it your own and negotiate on your terms. It was Sorry, I think better with words when I can put them to page. And you were asking for a suggestion, so there you go.
He nods, and from the time that you were just talking to him a few minutes ago and the time that you're talking to him now, there's a very apparent change in his demeanor. But he does kind of nod in acknowledgement and puts the parchment away in a chest, not necessarily a pocket, but in a fold of his cloak. He looks, I'm sure that there are other crew members still on deck.
Yes,
Is Rack nearby?
sure. He's steering. He's at the wheel. The wheel's locked, but he's at the wheel.
He looks towards Rack as if that's his instinct, but then instead turns in the direction of the other crew members and says, "Everybody off the deck. Now."
They comply.
And then he looks at Wellspring and says, "It is vitally important that none of us in the circle violates any rules of parley. Otherwise, they will be free to use that as a provocation and punish us accordingly. So I need all of you." And then his gaze kind of turns to the others, Jude and Starfall, and says, "I need you all to be mindful of any tricks or any attempts to get you to do something rash." Does that make sense?
I'll just keep my mouth shut.
He nods. That may be wise for now.
Yes.
Mouth shut, hands off of weapons.
Starfall zips her mouth and crosses her arms.
And then Vermilion, as before, marches towards the prow, his wings kind of reaching their maximum wingspan. And he says, give me 1 second.
So I'm just gonna stop you there.
Oh, shit.
As you turn your face to the storm, the violet lightning spills out of the pregnant clouds above, and the others see the golden reflective burn of your cast mark take that violet light and throw it back. And the massive sheet of violet lightning vomits out as though it intends to just annihilate the entire ship. And the broad, heavy center of it strikes at the main, at the broad center of the main sail, trying to reach through it to shatter the main mast. And but as the lightning impacts and its great vast central sheet fractures into 1,000 angry violet tendrils that crawl over the surface of the sail, hidden calligraphies suddenly bleed out of the main sail, and ancient words in the old language of the high realm ink themselves into existence across the face of the sail. There's a split second for anybody to do anything except make noise. If anybody wants to do anything or be in a certain way for whatever is going to happen next. Anybody? No. Okay.
No.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. And then something happens. And there is not the sound of thunder But if instead the lightning could breathe in a terrible and thunderous silence, stealing the very air from your lungs, stealing sound from your ears, stealing color from the lights of the ship, the glow globes going dim and only a spectral eminence remaining from them. And in that light, the main sail is brilliant and it absorbs the fat belly of the lightning and its 1,000 fingers. And the sail stands pure white, limned in gold for a heartbreaking moment, the only thing that seems real on the face of the sea, more real for a moment than you are. And then the moorings of the sail fail, ropes burning away, metal dripping in incandescent pebbles down through the slow, thick air toward the deck. And the sail hangs for half a moment and then levers out and falls toward the ship. Not the mast, not the stanchions, just the sail. But it falls like a vast piece of glass, unmoving to itself, and the words on its surface inking away, and the gold light failing, and the white light turning back violet, and the sail falls onto the midships swiftly and soundlessly, like despair. It eats everything it touches. Whip ropes, pieces of a stanchion, one of the standing support barrels that anchors a set of ropes to the deck. And then it falls through the deck of the Windthrift. And the deck is gone. And it keeps falling. Like the end of all hoping, through the mid decks, through the bottom of the ship, through the sea. And all the sound has been stolen. And so none of you hear the screaming of the Windthrift as it is cut in half. But you feel the terrible suffering of the vessel as it collapses immediately inward, the ocean pouring up through the depths. That violet light seems to be sucking the ship, the remnants of the ship down, seems to be pulling you down as the world turns and upends and the ship vomits its contents and its surface into the sounding, surging sea. And the black ocean greets you and grabs at you and swallows you. And the sail is no longer to be found. And instead there's a circle, a pale circle of light. You must have bobbed back up to the surface. You must be looking at a lunar eclipse. What else could make an empty circle of light like that? But no, it isn't the moon. You're not looking up at the sky. You're falling. And there is the rush of air against your faces. And the circle of light you see is the vast, round walls of a city. And some of it is burning. And you are falling toward it out of seemingly the heavens. Inside that circle that lines the walls of the city, that circle of light, there is another circle of light, but it isn't static. It's turning and churning and burning through stone, and it's pulling you in. And you're getting closer to the city, and you can begin to make out buildings, and there is a smell, and there's something familiar in the air. It's no longer the oceanic smothering cling of the storm. It's warm southern air that smells like flowers and the jungle rotting quietly among itself. And you realize you're looking down at the city of the Steel Lotus. And there's a figure striding across the middle of the city toward a brilliantly lit building of first age construction. And the figure is towering, impossibly large, maybe 20, 25 feet tall. And it seems to be a woman with white hair and skin the color of pearls. And she has a vast silver sickle in one hand, and she's harvesting the you thought was the whistling of the wind.
I think you cut out.
Why is my internet connection such a piece of crap tonight? I'm even wired in.
That wasn't just me, right?
No, it wasn't
No,
just
No.
you.
it wasn't.
She
Harvesting-
has a vast silver sickle in one hand and is
Yep.
harvesting.
Is harvesting people in the streets. And the sound that you thought was the rushing wind are as cries coming up to you out of the city. And there is a fierce flame that gathers on top of one of the buildings, and brilliant pieces of sunlight are shattering out across the city. And then you've fallen through a building somehow with no impact, and the circle of light is everywhere, and you've plunged back into the water. And the water tastes of things rotting in it. And all around you, there is a vast turbulence as something white and gleaming is spinning. And you realize you're back in that chamber under the Steel Lotus. And the first age, the semi-functional first age artifact is rotating and rotating around you. And you have fallen out of the empty air with a vast quantity of ocean. And the room and the ocean has poured in and is slapping against the walls. And you're afraid that if the circle doesn't stop spinning around you, that the ocean will fill this place and the tunnels that connected you to it, the long, long tunnels that run back to the surface, and you will surely drown. You are swimming in water, in ocean water, vastly turbulent, being literally physically spun by a sort of 3/4 circle that's spinning in the air, full of burning light. May I have Dex plus survival, so swimming rolls to gain some air and some control over your position in the water, please. And if you have another skill you think would work, let me know.
Could I use athletics?
Sure.
Okay.
Very nice job.
Well, all righty then.
Oh,
Oh dear. Well, one success is good.
It's not a botch.
it is better.
Adequate.
It's better than no successes, which is what I was afraid of.
Jesse, scroll to the bottom of that thing that I sent you.
Working on it. Ah, yes. I was fervently writing and did not see any of this, so I'm
Okay.
gonna need to catch up.
Yeah, no problem. That's yeah, just go along with that for a while. Alrighty. So
okay, understood. Got it.
So Starfall, your armor is dragging you. You've kind of oriented up and down, and you broke the surface, but your armor is unexpectedly heavy, and the waves kind of push you back under. And meanwhile, Jude and Vermilion, you've hit the surface of the water, and the white lights of the maybe 30-foot diameter ring that's spinning around you is filling the room, and it is definitely the room where you met the night driver, and there were those people that looked like you and all that stuff. You are definitely back in that room in the Lotus.
Neither of us were ever in that room.
That's correct.
Oh, right. Sorry. Never mind. You're in a totally weird room that you've never seen before.
Sweet.
Yes. It's obviously a room of first age construction. The thing whirring around you is obviously either some astonishing sorcery, except it looks like a ring that's spinning, but is partly broken as well. And so it's probably an artifact of some kind. You don't see anyone else in here, but also there are the room is large enough that oceanic level waves are hitting the walls and rebounding toward you, and ocean water is continuing to gush out of the empty space in the middle of the ring. So a couple of orientation points. You see off to one side, there's like a balcony or something that's only a few feet now above the surface of the water. And there's a passageway that's about half filled that the ocean is kind of running out of. And yeah, that's about all you see. So what are you guys going to do? And you just saw Vermilion, out of habit, you were looking for others, and you saw Wandering Starfall hit the surface, take a gasping breath, and then a wave just kind of slammed her back under.
Both of us, or just Vermilion saw that?
Just Vermilion.
Okay.
Just because he had so many ridiculous successes.
The thing in Wandering Starfall's mind is turning off the device.
Okay.
But probably even she goes first air.
Well, you did succeed on your swim roll. So you hit the surface, you got a big gulp of air, and then you went back under. And there is a brilliantly glowing artifact ring spinning around you, which you can see through the water. Not a problem.
Yeah.
Although you
then
don't
then she's
remember-
gonna try and figure out how to turn it off.
Okay, you don't remember there was that tall creepy guy with the wings and the magic and stuff, and you don't remember he did some kind of sorcery thingy, but the ring was already sort of moving.
Mhm, mhm. Is there any kind of roll I could make to see if I could figure out more?
Sure. I mean, you could make a like a perception plus what's the craft for like large works of essence?
Probably geomancy.
Yeah.
Which I do understand a little bit of. It might be artifacts, but I feel like something on this scale is probably more of a disadvantage than that. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to use an excellency on this to give myself, I think, 2 extra dice. Maybe that's underdoing it, but we'll see. Three successes.
Lovely. You don't know, but you don't know what in the room is, or if it's the room that's powering this thing. You don't see any obvious, like, activation stones or, Nance crystals or power cords or mechanical objects. And so you would guess that there's a couple ways that you could stop it. One would be to, it doesn't look okay. Like, it looks kind of broken. And so you could either probably, if there was some way you could feed it more power, it might fizzle out. Or if you could just get find a steel spar or something and just jam it into the space where it circles close to one of the stanchions, or one of the sort of bulwarks that the ring kind of passes through as it moves, that the thing might just rip itself apart. An artifact weapon would work. To jam it up probably, or whatever. Okay, so while you're thinking about that,
Nice.
Vermilion, you have hit the surface. You see maybe a couple ways out. Ocean water is pouring into the room out of thin air. What are you doing? There are obvious large waves that have, from the water pouring into the room, that have just kind of gone and hit the walls and are rebounding toward the center of the room where you are. So there's going to be some fun waves in a few moments.
I don't know. I'm having such a hard time even visualizing what's happening right now.
So imagine you're in a really big swimming pool and the wave machine is on. And the wave machine is a giant spinning white circle in the middle of the room. And you're in the water inside the spinning circle.
I try to get out of that. That sounds bad.
Okay, so you do see a hallway partly submerged and a balcony above it nearby. Or you could scan for other exits, or you could swim in that direction. And you see Jude is managing the surface just fine.
Okay, and I didn't see Starfall having trouble, did I? Or did I see?
You did
her?
see Starfall get swamped by, like, hit the surface, take a deep breath, start to look around, and then a wave went, down you go, bitch.
I think Vermilion's first instinct would be to try to get her, but I don't
Okay.
know if that's possible. Is that, can I swim in that? I don't know if like the water is.
Yeah, it's
am
ocean
I
water.
Okay. Alright.
It's turbulent and crazy, but you know, you are a supernaturally good swimmer.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so you're
Um,
gonna dive
mhm.
and look for. Okay, great.
So the water is coming out of the ring. Is that what's going on?
Yes, the ocean is continuing to pour out of the space in the middle of the ring.
So then, like Starfall, I'm probably trying to figure out if there's some way we can stop this. Although part of me is also wondering, is this real?
Is this really happening? What's going on right now?
Like, is this real? Is this an illusion? I don't know if there's any way to tell. So he probably tries to swim over to the ring to take a better look.
Okay, you swim toward the ring. You don't need to roll. The ring is larger than you initially thought. It seems to be about 30 feet across, and it just seems to be, or you can't see if it's attached to anything, but it's hovering in the air. And actually, part of the ring is missing, but it's spinning. Actually, it's kind of slowing down as it's carving through the increasing amount of water in the room. But it's spinning, and it's spinning fast enough that it would be dangerous to swim past it to try to get out of the room, but not super dangerous. And you can kind of make out down below the water that there are like stone supports of some kind, that it seems to be spinning near or by or through or something.
All right. And can I figure out if there's any way to like stop the water? I'm guessing, I mean, Jesse already kind of made a roll for that, but dude doesn't know that.
I mean, you can make a int plus occult roll.
All
To
right.
see
So
if
he's gonna,
some of this seems familiar to you.
yeah, see if he can figure out anything.
Somebody's fancy.
Hmm. Can I see any way to close it? Is the question.
Vermilion, you dive under the waves, and interestingly, and you see just where you expected to see. You see wandering starfall sort of floating in the water, just kind of looking around, which somehow shouldn't be one of the weirdest things you've seen today, but sort of is.
I think I swim towards her, and like I reach for her, and I'm about to kind of pull her towards me and upwards until I realize that she's actively investigating something, and then I let go and kind of, I can't speak because I'm underwater, but I'm just kind of like, I'm observing her and trying to figure out what she's doing and trying to help if that makes sense to me.
After a moment of assessment, she would start trying to swim for the surface again.
Then the moment that she, like, the moment she kind of turns towards the surface, Vermilion kind of nods and tries to help her.
What kind of feathers are your wings made of?
I imagine them kind of like the wings of a cormorant.
Oh,
Without
okay.
without being an ornithologist, I
Sort
not
of
sure.
dark and slender and oily.
Oh, sorry, not a cormorant. It's a white bird. What was I thinking?
Seagull?
No. Oh,
Pelican?
yeah, actually, I think it might have been.
Crane?
No, it wasn't a crane. I think it might have been a seagull.
Egret?
Albatross. Sorry, that's the one.
Albatross.
Oh, okay.
Ooh,
Ooh.
good luck.
Hmm.
Very good luck.
So broad and white and sort
Yes.
of white and gray and
Very long.
with like a little fluffy under thing.
Yes,
Okay.
that sounds right. Mhm.
Lovely. Sorry, so just for clarification, the room is about 40 feet tall. There's about 14 feet of water in the room. It's basically just like filling the bottom of the room. You can see a couple ways out. The circle is only about a third of the way underwater, and it's spinning. So most of it is in the open air, and out of the open air in the middle of the circle, just ocean water is just vomiting in all directions. Like out of thin air at the center of the circle.
Good to know. Jude is gonna try to swim outside of the circle.
Is Starfall and I, are both of us able to reach the surface without any issues?
Yeah, no problem. And you look around and you have a moment to kind of, there's a moment of it's kind of pouring rain now around you as the ocean just kind of vomits out into the open air. And you have maybe about 20 seconds before the waves that just hit the walls rebound to where you are toward the middle of the circle. So you're all on the surface, you're looking around.
I think Vermilion reaches into his pocket and pulls out the piece of paper, which kind of disintegrates in the water. And he's kind of out of shock and still trying to get his bearings. He mutters almost incoherently, "I am Vermilion Eventide. I'm entreating with you. Respect the rules of hospitality if you are there."
Vermilion's voice is a golden clarion in the room, and it rebounds from the walls, louder than the water and the waves. And in response, the green and brackish ocean water rushes back towards you. But in another part of the room, there is a small stirring, and something made of bones and clotted with seaweed, like terrible hair, pulls itself up above the water. And then it turns toward you, and there are hollow little white pinpricks in the black skull eye holes. And the dead thing regards you for a moment and then begins moving, shambling toward you. And it clearly falls off whatever it was standing on and goes deep beneath the water.
I turn and face in the direction where it went down underwater, and I say, I request a parley and my companions to be unharmed by the power given to me by the unconquered sun. And then he kind of dunks his head below the water to like panicking, looking to see if it's like there still.
On reflex, you ignite your cast mark, and the light of it sears out like a lighthouse through the brackish water, and you scan right and left. Mark off a moat. Sorry, I spent it for you.
It's fine.
And you scan back and forth through the brackish water, and you see not one but several shambling, skeleton-y somethings staggering toward you through the brackish ocean. You wouldn't describe the way they're moving toward you as quote unquote parley. Just offhand. Starfall and Jude, what are you guys doing? He's made his proclamation and then dives back down beneath the waves, and the water burns gold from within.
I said
Earlier, Starfall is
Jude
shouting
was
for
trying to-
Jude. Sorry, what was that? You first.
I said a bit earlier that Jude is trying to get outside of the ring, because of things we were talking about earlier. So I assume that might require a roll.
I'm sorry, you want to roll for what? I didn't quite catch that. Oh, to find the stanchion or whatever it is.
Yes.
The panel.
To get outside the ring and find the thing.
Oh,
He
yeah.
probably needs to light his cast mark to be able to see under the water. But
Well, the ring is burning bright white. So if you just want to see things nearby, it's not a problem. But you, of course, can ignite your cast mark. But the first thing you need to do probably is swim out of the ring, and it's a little bit complicated by the waves bounding and rebounding from the walls, and by the turgid turbidity that the ring is creating as it spins through the gathering ocean water. And so it's going to be a little bit challenging of either dex plus survival or strength plus athletics.
I'm going to go with Dex plus survival.
Okay.
I'm better at that.
Great. Do you shout anything as you take off swimming?
Yes, actually, he's going to turn to the others and say, there should be some sort of control panel outside of the ring. I'm going to go look for it.
Okay. Vermilion doesn't hear you because he's below the water, but Wandering Starfall, you definitely do.
So
Starfall, there's sort of a moment, and then she yells, "You mean back in the ocean?"
no, in the part of the room outside the ring.
Oh, and her head ducks under the water. She's going looking.
Nice. Okay, so you can make the same choice for rolls to swim out of the ring.
I'm going to.
Of course, as both of you duck under the waves and begin to swim quickly, you can't help but look to where Vermilion has fixed the light of his cast mark, and you see some decidedly skeletal things haphazardly adorned with seaweed, kind of pushing their way across the floor of the room underwater in your general direction. So presumably you pick an exit from the circle, not in that direction.
Yeah, I'm going to use Excellency because survival is also a thing. And because that lights up my cast mark conveniently anyway. So if I want to be able to look around outside with that, then I might as well kill two birds with one stone.
Okay. Great.
That went about as well as I expected.
Yay, 5.
Oh dear.
I
All right.
for one.
You get again kind of swamped and slapped and by the waves, and your buff jacket is like a weight around your whole body, and you're just not having a good time, Starfall. By huge contrast, it is obvious that Jude spent time in the namesake of the Riverlands and knows his way around water, as like a fish, he quickly zooms away from the center, from the ocean water in the center of the ring, and times it and kind of scoots past the ring as it whooshes by.
Is Wellspring in the room with us? Just checking.
No,
Oh,
nor is Lost, nor any crew members that you can see, unless they're walking toward you now.
I think Vermilion, is there anything that he can grab hold of that's like on the walls that he can use to pull himself out of the water?
There's nothing in this general area to use to get out of the water. Everything that the stonework and whatever that you see down below, there's various broken pillars and things. It's all too low really to get you out of the water. The closest thing to get you out of the water would be if you swam possibly dangerously close to the skeletons, over to the balcony, which is well above the water. You could haul yourself out there.
Yeah, I'm looking for something, not necessarily that I guess for me to fully get out, but that I could pull enough so I can try to use my wings to get me out.
Yeah, there's really nothing.
All right, I'm
other
gonna
than
make
that balcony.
I'm gonna make my way towards the balcony.
Okay. Great. So give me a strength plus athletics to kind of power swim over in that direction.
Okay. You won't let me use dexterity for that, right?
Sure you can. It's fine.
Okay. Oh God, really? One success. I am grateful for that 8 though, because there's 2 1s in there too.
Oof.
If you use the willpower, you have to declare it before you roll.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you
Yeah,
had to do it before you rolled.
No worries.
So that's 3 successes. That's not, oh no, that's 1 success.
This one. Yeah.
Yeah. So you start carving your way through the water, but you get to the edge of the ring and are kind of brought up short as it past you through the water. You can see the ring is about 5 inches deep and about 3 inches across, and it looks to be made of some kind of metal. And it's burning with a sort of soft, pure white magnesium glow. All right. So Jude, why don't you make a perception plus awareness for me, as you start searching around in the water? And you ignited your cast mark?
Yes.
Okay.
And
great.
I'm going to spend a willpower on this one because this is not actually my specialty. So I think under the circumstances. Yes. All right. So perception plus awareness, which I think is not that high. Yep. All right. Should I do a +1 since I spent the willpower? Or does that
A
matter?
willpower just gives you an automatic success.
Yes. So.
Oh yeah,
plus
I mean, well, yeah, we'll figure it out. Okay, woo. So that gives you 2. You search around for a moment, and luckily, there is like a low dais with a sort of 30-degree cutaway top. And there's first you just think it's a reflection, but there does seem to be like an echo of the pearlescent light coming off the ring. And so you
Alright.
swim toward it. Meanwhile, the shambling dead have noticed you flailing in the water and have turned towards you, Vermilion. And if you don't swim well, they are going to be reaching up and tickling your toes soon. And floundering in the water. What are you doing now, Starfall?
Getting very frustrated. I don't. I don't know that she has anything she can do.
It occurs to
apart
you.
from
It occurs to you that your artifact bracers could probably be jammed in where the ring goes through its sort of one of the stanchions that it kind of passes through, and it might jam it. But although they were built to be tough for certain things, they might break also.
She wouldn't want to do that anyway if there's a chance of just shutting it off.
Okay.
I honestly think what she does is keep trying to swim, keep trying to help. Might be futile, but it's probably the right answer.
Just keep swimming, just
So I will try it again.
Are you going to roll, John? Are you going to use willpower? What are you going to do?
Oh, I wasn't clear to me that you were asking for a roll. I will go ahead and roll that now. Sure, I will. I don't think athletics is favored, so I will use a willpower on this.
Sorry, is that bullheadedness swimming?
Yes.
Okay. Are you swimming after the captain or swimming after the chirurgeon?
Probably after the chirurgeon, though I might pick
Okay.
a different tunnel.
Okay. Well, she seems to have located something interesting underwater, and you saw her, or sorry, not her. You saw him breach the surface, take a deep breath, and then dive again.
Oh. In that case, I'll see if I can make out what he found and whether it's the control panel. Is it too far away at this point?
You can kind of make out that there's a little half pillar with a cut top that does seem to be glowing of its own light, but you're too far through the water to make out details or anything.
Okay, then I'll head that direction for now.
You decide to kick your wings into the swimming, Vermilion, and scoot quickly past the ring as it whooshes by again. And outpace the shambling skeletons, which seem to be coming apart in the water. Although you don't waste time to look at what the details of that are.
Okay.
So you scoot by them, and you manage to reach the balcony, and it's not too much of an effort. You beat your wings and flex your legs and pull with your arms, and you kind of stand partway out of the water on the edge of the balcony. The water in the room has risen by about a foot since you started swimming over here. That's not good. So you're out of the water. What are you going to do now?
So you said the room was like 40 feet tall. It's risen a
Mhm.
foot, so it's about 15 feet of water. So there's probably enough. It's going to be tight, but there's probably enough for him to use his wings and launch himself. I don't think he's going to be flying around, but he's going to like use his wings to stay out of the water and try to move from one place that he can hold on to another if there is. And he's going to pull out his bow and arrow. And can I see the skeletons under the water from where I am, or no?
You kind of turn outward and pour your cast light down through the slightly murky green water, and you do catch the unmistakable whiteness of bone. The interesting thing is that the skeletons seem to have come apart, and two of the skulls are floating by themselves on the top of the water, and and somehow they're chattering their jaws and kind of eating their way through the water towards you. So there's that. And Jude, you descend to the panel, and you can see it's covered in kind of softly glowing runes. There is about like a hand-sized piece of the panel missing. Like the top right corner is broken off, and so some of the text sort of vanishes mid-character in that corner. And but your cast mark easily illuminates the platform, and you begin trying to kind of decipher the characters. However, do you read Old Realm?
I do not yet.
Oh, then it's going to be problematic.
Then maybe it's time for me to go help assist Starfall in getting over there.
In the meantime, Starfall, you have made your way past the ring using one of the kind of surges of the waves, and you see Jude break the surface and kind of look toward you, and you're making your swimming way toward him, and so the two of you can descend together. Meanwhile, Vermilion.
Yep.
Make a quick perception plus awareness for me.
Three successes.
Lovely. You look at the skulls and blink a couple times, hoping they will go away. If you do that, it does not work. And then you catch movement beyond them, and you see that their bodies have like linked together in this sort of skeletal wheel covered in hands and feet, and it's rolling itself across the floor of the pool toward your two companions.
Oh,
There,
Well, then.
sorry, there are not a lot of other places to perch in the room, especially if you want to be able to use both hands to fire a bow.
All right, then I will just perch on the best candidate, which seems to be near this balcony, right?
Yeah.
Can I get, so can I jump up and use my wings to push down and get onto the balcony itself?
Yeah. No, you could just step over the railing of the balcony. It's kind of broken and
All right.
rotted anyway.
Okay, so then I
But
take that.
but the balcony itself is stone and very sturdy.
Excellent. I will take that vantage point. And I say, if whoever rules this place, if you will honor Parley, then stop right now. And he waits a moment, but not very long. And then when they don't, he fires arrows towards the, he's gonna prioritize the rolling wheel of bones.
So the rolling wheel of bones, to have any hope of your arrows hurting it at all, you're going to have to fly over there and hover above it and shoot straight down at it, because it's too far away and it's through like 12 feet of water.
Okay.
But the skulls are on the surface.
Sure. All right, well, actually, that's a fair point. I will aim for the closest skull.
Great.
Do I think I'll have another chance to make an attack before the wheel gets to my companions?
Yes.
Great, okay.
It's moving quickly for something moving across the floor of water, but
Right.
Not that fast.
Okay. So should I roll an attack?
Yeah, tell me what you do.
So Vermilion takes a deep breath and closes his eyes and wills himself to accept the reality of the strangeness that is around him. And then his eyes kind of slam open as he notches an arrow into the bow, and light flashes across like electricity across from the feathers at the back to the sharp point of the front, and it launches itself at unnatural supernatural velocity right into the gaping mouth of the skull as it chatters its way towards him.
Nice. Alrighty, I'll give you 2 dice for a super cool description. So this would be a withering attack. Actually, what we're gonna do is this is a withering attack, and I'm just gonna give you a base initiative of 6.
Okay.
So withering attack is dexterity plus your combat ability plus the weapon's accuracy.
I have that written down somewhere. Where did I put that? Is this the first time I've actually done combat? It
Yeah.
might be. Yeah. Oh, I don't have the accuracy. What do you know? The accuracy of a longbow? I have the damage is 9 on my sheet. Let me look in the.
Yours is an artifact, though, right?
I'm not using the artifact bow. I wasn't able to attune to it, so I'm using the bow that I had previously. The Grand Panoply, mortal weapons, exceptional weapons and equipment. This is a medium archery weapon. Oh, that's right. I think archery weapons don't have an accuracy weapon. They just an accuracy rating. They're affected by range. Is that correct? And so would this be short, medium, long, extreme,
be
or
short.
close? Short. Excellent. Okay, so that's +4. So 14 dice before I use a charm. Which is 1 mote per die, correct? For excellencies?
Yeah.
I'll just use 2 motes. Just to give it a little something, something. These will come off peripheral because why not? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 successes.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
And the longbow has 9 damage. Oh, we're not there yet. Are we?
Yeah. So now we take strength plus your weapon damage. They have a defense of 4.
Okay.
So that's 9 minus 4 is 5, plus your strength plus your weapon damage.
5 plus 9 is 14, plus strength is 16. Okay, so do I roll that as dice?
No.
16
Oh.
damage then.
Sorry. Yes, you do. I'm a big liar.
And does overwhelming matter at all? I don't know if what
No,
that
you
is.
have too many dice.
Okay. Oh, I should have done.
Damn it, John, you have too many dice.
1, 2, 3. And for this, 10s do not count as 2. Is that correct?
Correct. This
1,
is the
2,
only
3,
time for you
4.
that they do not.
Sad. So 5 successes.
No, double tens applies to withering, not the other kind, not decisive.
Oh, decisive. Oh, in that case, then add 2.
Oh,
7.
Cool.
I was like, I remember it applies to one and not the other, and I'm pretty certain it wasn't decisive.
Right. So that raises your initiative from 8 to 15
Mhm.
and lowers that thing's initiative. So you spike it right through the eye socket, and there's a shattering of small chips as the arrowhead takes out part of the back of the skull on its way through, and the skull sort of spins and froths in the water and kind of shakes itself as the other 2 skulls continue to chomp their way forward. And then it sort of rights itself and kind of uneasily starts chomping its way back toward you. Chomp, 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 chomp.
Oh, wait, is there 2 or 3 total? I thought there were 2.
There are 3.
Oh, there are 3. Okay.
Yep. Alrighty. Intrepid explorers, what do you? So you guys swim down to the panel, and there's some kind of auto illuminated calligraphy on this kind of the stone tablet face of this little short stanchion.
I can read Old Realm.
Excellent.
I thought you could.
You scan it quickly. It's lit from within, and also there's a burning solar light upon it. And it seems to be some kind of lengthy prayer to heaven, and like begging an audience with the gods of heaven. And you realize that a bunch of that prayer is not lit. And so the parts that are lit kind of communicate something along like seeking audience or seeking opening. And you've seen kind of some sort of rune stuff before. So this is some kind of like prayer empowered magical object. And many first stage artifacts are activated or powered by prayer. And Jude, there is a strong stink of sorcery in the water, kind of floating off of this object. So the 2 of you pop quickly back to the surface, and once you're on the surface, you can go ahead and share information, or you can plan. You can assume you share information. But what do you guys want to try to do?
Yes, I think is to get the light out from under opening, but I don't know how to do it. I know a sorcerer worked this before.
Yeah, there's definitely a feel of sorcery upon it. So
You hear the whistle of an arrow, and turn, and across the room you see 3 skulls, and probably floating on the top of the water, and an arrow just went through one of them, and it kind of spins out, and then the 3 skulls turn back and continue sort of chomping their way through the water toward Vermilion, who is not, maybe there isn't a safe distance to be away from something like that, but yeah, he's up on a balcony and seems safe for the moment.
oh,
And
well,
and then as you
we-
lower your gaze, you see a wheel of bones propelling its way across the floor towards you with hands and feet.
we're gonna need to try and get this fixed quickly. You read Old Realm. Do not shoot. Words. Any ideas what can turn that off, can stop the water?
I don't quite know what's powering it, but put out the light. I mean, I think you could probably fry it if you've sent enough power into it at all, but maybe here, I'll show you what I think is the crucial word, and maybe you can shift it, shape it. I don't
Can
think
try
about how it
that.
works. Right.
You duck back under the water, and as you're swimming back down, there are gears of light that are sort of turning in the back of your head, wandering Starfall. And go ahead and make an int plus crafting geomancy roll for me, or int plus
Okay.
occult, whichever one is better.
That'll be occult at the moment.
Someday.
Okay.
So you are welcome to shoot again, Vermilion. You think you probably could shatter the skull you already hit if you wanted to shoot at it, or you could try to go after one of the other skulls.
So did spinning it out, does it put it behind the other 2 skulls?
Yeah.
Are flurries a thing in 3rd edition?
No,
Okay.
not without charms.
Not for a time.
I will. How close is the wheel to my companions?
It'll be there in about, you could take about 4 shots between now and then.
Okay. Sorry, I'm browsing my charms, but I think just doing the same thing again seems about right. So this time, Vermilion, feeling a little bit more sure of himself, climbs up onto the railing of the balcony, and his posture is perfect, in himself pretending that this is the bow of his ship where he never falls and never falters. And he draws another arrow across his bow, and and pretending that the water below him is the water of the ocean. And suddenly this feels like a shot that he has made countless times in the past. He decides to try to shatter that skull with another well-placed arrow.
Awesome. I love it. You can have 2 extra dice.
Excellent.
So this is a decisive attack.
Oh,
And so it's dex plus your combat ability, not weapon accuracy.
okay. And so just for my own edification, that means that what happened last time put it into initiative crash. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just trying to learn the system. Okay,
Mhm.
and I will roll. The accuracy is not involved. Right, so it's mostly the same. And does the range still matter? Paul?
Short.
Yeah, so it
No,
still
no, there's no
applies?
other modifiers. Weapon accuracy doesn't count. Oh no, but other modifiers do apply. Yeah, so range would still apply.
Okay, so we're gonna use again, 2 more motes and same roll. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 successes. Oh, that's not that great. I'll take it.
Sorry, I'm frantically secret typing to people. So if you
Take
just tell me how many successes you get, that would be great.
I did, I said it was 4.
Oh, sorry.
Problem.
Great. Oh, greater than or equal. Yay. Okay. So then your raw damage is equal to your current initiative, which is 15.
15.
So you get 15 dice of damage.
Cool.
10s do not count as double.
2, 3, 4, 5 successes this time.
Your precisely placed strike shatters the skull into 100 bone shards that lose their liveliness and sink beneath the brackish water.
Yay.
And go ahead and take another shot quick follow-up at one of the approaching skulls.
Okay.
And your initiative gets a reset to 3, which I'll keep track of right now.
Okay, I am tracking it, but
Okay.
but this is a withering attack again, correct?
Right. I mean, you could try a decisive attack, but obviously you don't have, since your initiative is your damage, you wouldn't do much damage.
No. Okay, so I will do a withering attack.
You are weirdly starting to find it difficult to breathe. Like the air is thick or something. You're just having a little bit of like something going on. But it doesn't affect your roll in any way.
Okay. So he quickly does a snapshot at the approaching second
Mhm.
skull. And same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 successes.
Well, I think that's bigger than 4. So
Yeah.
great. Strength plus your weapons damage plus your successes minus 4 dice. Roll that many dice.
Okay, so
And that's how much initiative you get, and 8 loses.
so that's 8 plus strength is 10. You said strength plus weapon damage,
Plus,
plus my successes minus the 4, right?
yeah.
Okay, so that's 10. Plus 19. Okay, 19.
And while they're doing that,
Wow. Not great. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, 5 successes still.
okay. So your initiative goes up to 8, and the skull kind of rocks back as the arrow takes a chip out of its forehead, and wobbles in the water, and then tries to start coming at you again. Meanwhile, under the water, Wandering Starfall, you were kind of following Jude a little bit. Does anything change as you guys approach the podium, or?
I thought she rolled something.
Yes. And she got a secret message
Oh, okay.
as a reward.
That makes sense. Judah's probably kind of trying to be between her and skeleton rolly things.
I just realized I've been muted. Let me try that again. Yeah. I think what happens is Jude and Starfall are conversing at the surface, and Starfall is positing theories, and then suddenly cocks her head to one side and goes, "Oh, or I could do this," and dives back down toward the control pillar. Probably would need your help to get there.
He will help her with the swimming.
And when they reach the pillar, she sort of uncertainly puts her hand out on it and starts pouring essence into it. Probably not as cautiously as someone should do something like that. But
All right.
I suspect her anima comes to light.
How much do you spend? And is it peripheral?
Would I have any idea how much this would take?
No.
Okay. Then starting with 10 and yes, peripheral.
Okay. It clocks to you, Jude, what she's doing. And make a wits plus occult.
Ooh, wits. Okay.
All right. When you get to roll wits plus occult, come on. John, go ahead and roll your next attack. Or tell us what your next attack
Ooh,
is. And then roll
yay,
it.
2 10s in there. So that is actually 5.
Nice. You realize what she's doing, and it clocks to you. Oh, and underwater you yell using most of your remaining breath, like a prayer of thanks and ending. As the sunlight pours into the podium, and golden light starts to leak and burn out of all the cracks in the podium, and the writing that's already lit begins to shake and turn golden, and gold light starts to leak up through the rest of the ideograms, and you see from above the water, Vermilion. You see that the color of the light in the ring as it's turning is turning from kind of a clear phosphorus white to a like a deep twilight. What color is your anima, Jude? Sorry, Wandering Starfall. What color is the light of your anima that we're about to see also? Oh, I see. Okay. So the light turns a gorgeous burnished golden red, and the room fills with the warm light of sunset.
Oh, nice.
And John, tell us about your next curse whack.
When you use peripheral essence, what's the milestones in that track? Because like at 18,
Good question. Thank you for asking. It's
5,
on
10,
my-
15, 20, I think.
Yeah.
I might
uh,
have it in my list of saved pages because I have a whole set of things that I just kind of screenshotted.
What is the question?
Find it.
what
like
are
You're
the?
looking for the
I've got it.
It's
The
in
animal banner
resources.
levels?
Yeah.
It's spending 5 drives it up a level. So you'd hit glowing at once you spend 5, burning once you spend another 5, and bonfire once you spend another 5, thus 15 to get all the way to bonfire.
okay. So having just completed his last attack and reaching bonfire, Vermilion's wings kind of lock together, and they even though they're spread out, they seem rigid, as if they are holding on to something imperceptible. And instead of glowing white, they turn different shades, first blue and then a crimson red and then a hot yellow, and they radiate as he draws another arrow, and the fire from his wings seem to like reach out with tendrils and touch the arrow, lighting it on fire as he launches it towards the skull. And
I'm just going to give it to you. You hit the skull and it explodes in a shower of fiery ruin, and pieces of it go shooting through the other skull that's coming up behind it. And it kind of gurgles as all of its teeth fall out, and staring balefully at you nonetheless as its jaw unhinges and disconnects, sinks beneath the turbulent surface of the water. As the ring grinds to a sudden halt, and that perfect sunset color floods the room, and then gears of all shapes and sizes, all made of the colors of a tropical sunset, burn to life around the podium and near your two companions. And that light burns brightly and seems to the water seems to magnify it, so the surface of the water fills with a twilight glow, and it merges with the burning of your wings, and then the room starts peeling away like old paint. In strips, the walls seem to collapse in on themselves like the parchment did earlier, too wet. And there are strips of darkness and wood and strange sights that begin to be revealed. And one moment, please.
And it is after 10.
I know. Thank you. Sorry.
I figured I'd say something.
And then slowly, piece by piece, your eyes burning and your ears ringing, you stir awake on the ship. Vermilion, you're draped across the wheel. Starfall, you sit up suddenly, your room ablaze with burning light as cogs and wheels assemble themselves into the machinery of a great white turning ring in the middle of the room. Jude, you wake suddenly, and there's light literally burning up through the floorboard or down through the boards of the deck into your room. a sort of hot twilight color, and then there's another set of twilight color sort of burning its way through like under the door from the hallway. And very slowly at first, and then with increasing speed, as you hear a shout from on deck. And it's the voice of the night driver. And he says, "We have to get the ship going, and we have to do it now." Vermilion, you pull yourself standing, and now you remember 2 evenings. One evening where a storm chased the ship and lightning did impossible things to time, and another evening where you outran a storm, chasing the breath of its edges a little bit more south than you wanted to, and your companions went quietly to bed. There is a pale violet mist in the air that's dissipating. And the night driver looks up at you, and you see his black cloak is cut almost in half. And he's wearing his dark studded leather underneath, but the studded leather, every metal point on it is burning with ghost light. And there's another spectral armor around his body that's covered in sharp horns and bones, and is made of is like a suit of battlefield plate made entirely of ghost energy. And he has a sword in his hand that's burning not only with ghost light but with actual fire. And he says to you again, as you kind of groggily take in the scene, "Vermilion Eventide, do you understand my words? You have to get the ship going again. We have to get out of here."
Okay. I look around as instinctively looking for my crew. Is there anybody here?
There, a few of them seem to be hanging from ropes and things among the slack sails, and a couple of them look like they took not horrible spills onto the deck.
Pick yourselves up.
They are not rousing.
Oh, okay. I think he yells, "Pick yourselves up," and all hands, and like he kind of stomps.
As your gaze sweeps the deck, you see standing almost exactly in the middle of the boat, your companion, Wellspring. And would you describe your anima for us?
Yes, Wellspring's anima is a swirling storm of pages and parchment fluttering around him in a actually very slow and gently revolving motion, the text of which, as the pages sort of rise up from beneath him, begins to peel off, and high above him is just these swirling symbols and letters and words that eventually cycle with those that rise. Some fall back down, reunite with pages, and are reconsumed by the mass. And the light that emanates forth is generally a soft amber, though in its current bonfire state, the soft gets removed. Amber, which, by the way, is the ideal color light to read by.
You take that in with a like, okay, that's the 87th weirdest thing I've seen tonight. Great. And you turn back to and unlock the wheel and look for the conch. And Lost is standing nearby wearing a gorgeous mask decorated with soft traceries of ink and metal. And she's holding a duplicate mask in her hand, and you know she just took it off your face. And that's why you were having problems breathing in the other room with the ocean. Yeah, okay. And with her other hand, she hands you the conch.
I quickly instinctively like know the direction that we're heading, and I whisper into the conch for the spirit to accelerate us west.
You're not sure how you know this, but guiltily the elemental wakens and pushes its breath into the sails, and with a creak and a groan, the windthrift begins to run again. Is the doctor here? Asks the night driver in the dark.
I don't see him. Is and like looking at Wellspring's prone form, they might be in their quarters.
Wellspring
No,
is not
Wellspring is
prone.
standing up right in the
Oh,
middle of the ship.
Sorry,
Totally fine.
I don't know why I thought Wellspring was prone. Oh, the crew was prone. That's right. I think Jude is below deck, maybe.
It's about then that the others emerge on deck, the others of your circle. The night driver looks relieved. I'm not sure what you're going to be able to do about this, but I was hoping. And he raises his left arm, and you see maybe half an inch below the wrist, there's looks like he's wearing a bracelet made of fierce ghost light, and you realize you can see all the way through it. Like the only thing holding his hand to his arm is ghost light.
There's no bone inside it.
Nothing, just ghost light.
Neat.
And we'll stop there.
Nice.
My apologies for running very long this evening, and I think
It was very exciting, at least.
Yay! Oh, I'm glad. Hopefully, you all had fun, and I think in deference to the lateness of the hour and the sickness of one of us, I'm just going to kind of call it there. And I just want to say, oh, you are all so gorgeous this evening, and thank you so much. And I'm so happy we have finally gotten to this part of the story.
Thank you.
Oh,
It
this
was
is
awesome.
phenomenal.